Good morning. Welcome to Heather Rants. We don't really rant here, but people who don't like what you have to say call it ranting because it makes you sound more unhinged when they call it ranting. I lean into it. I don't really care. Anywho, so if you haven't been living under a rock in the XJW world, you know about the situation in Norway where they've been revoked of their religious status. Anthony Morris III made a public announcement and acknowledgement of it finally. He wasn't completely truthful, but that's okay. We don't really mind. It doesn't matter. But there's a lot to that announcement. I wasn't really fond of it because I think it was emotionally manipulative. They used the word unprecedented. That is a big marketing flash word, an emotionally triggering word. But it's not unprecedented. It's like they don't even remember. It was not that long ago that they got freaking banned in Russia. They are literally not getting money from Norway. They're not being endorsed and paid by Norway. While they do abusive behavior and break the law. And they're comparing it to being banned in Russia. You can't even have your publications, period, in Russia. You can't gather and worship together in Russia. This is unprecedented. Not getting paid by the Norwegian. Are you crazy? And then they're comparing it to the Holocaust. Are you freaking kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me? The Holocaust? Like, we all know you got persecuted in the Holocaust. Not getting into it. You got persecuted in the freaking Holocaust, and you're comparing. Are you serious right now? Oh my God. You can't be serious. Are you? Let me tell you something. Not getting over $1 million a year from the government in a privileged position that Norway allows for you is not the same as being just outright banned. It's not the same as genocide. Stop being emotionally manipulative twat waffles, man. I'm not sorry. Stop being emotionally manipulated twat waffles, and you might not be dealing with this right now. Okay? Okay. Moving on. So, let's just lead with this one because they don't really do anything really all that different than Norway is doing. Because Norway doesn't want to endorse abusive behavior, and by paying them money, they're essentially endorsing them. By allowing them to be in this position of privilege, they're saying that they condone behavior. Let's go over the behavior first, because the disfellowshipping we've talked about before is emotionally damaging. It causes physical, medical changes in the brain and the body that is really, really hard to undo. It wrecks social relationships and structures. It destroys lives and sometimes even careers. And a lot of that is damage that either cannot be undone or would be extremely difficult to undo. Even if you had the opportunity, because you have to struggle to come back. You have to go through a whole show of 6 months of public humiliation minimum and write letters and hope it works. The stuff you do destroys relationships that would benefit individuals. Parents taking care of their children, or children taking care of their parents as they age. Aunts and uncles not being able to help with children and have relationships and bonds and let a child feel secure. The fear that's instilled in children regarding disfellowshipping and non-members. The trauma of losing people. Let me tell you about my traumas as a child. Because when my aunt got disfellowshipped, that was devastating. Because that meant that until she successfully wrote a reinstatement letter begging to come back, that she would die and I'd never get to see her again. My aunt that I loved so much, until she came back. I had cousins that were in the truth when I left, or when I was disfellowshipped. It devastated them. As children, they didn't know or care what it did to me, but it devastated them. They were like 9 and 10 years old. I didn't know how much it hurt them until we were able to connect in their mid-20s. I am a stranger to them. I am that weird relative that comes out of the woodwork once in a while. They don't know who I am. And as a child, my cousins that weren't in, I remember being up at night crying my eyes out, because I loved my cousins so much. And they had no hope. They were going to be destroyed. I wouldn't get to see them. Paradise didn't sound like a place I didn't want to be, but I didn't want to go either because I was terrified of losing them. That is a really terrible, awful place to put your children. It's awful. Awful. Just living in fear and heartache all the time instead of being secure and attached like a normal, healthy child should be. The damage that you do cannot be undone. We aren't talking 10 Hail Marys and $50,000 that can be replaced. And the government doesn't want to endorse you. They don't want to endorse you for the damage that you cause to human beings and for the damage that you do to children. And them not endorsing you is the same thing that you do. Because it's not even the same thing. Y'all are on another level. If somebody were to die without having written a successful reinstatement letter as a disfellowshipped person, you literally have an article where it's frowned upon to go to their funeral. I thought this was a loving arrangement. I thought this was for their benefit. You can't even gather with other people to mourn them and to commiserate about like all the good times. You can't go to their funeral because it would give somebody the impression that you endorse their sinful behavior. You can't go to a wedding where somebody isn't scripturally free to get remarried without the risk or threat of being disfellowshipped. You won't hold a wedding for somebody who's not in good standing because you don't want to endorse their behavior. This is Norway doing the same thing to you. You are in a place of privilege in the government of Norway. Because religions are a source of societal structure and benefit. But because religions are a benefit to society, you are in a place of privilege. Now, when you're causing damage and destroying people and doing things that have been medically connected to actual physical harm, why would they endorse you? You've been in this place of privilege. You've been the faithful slave to the government, and now you've turned into the wicked slave. And the irony is that drunken Tony is the one that made the announcement. Getting drunk and being your slaves. You are the wicked slave. And now you want to buckle down into this? You want to buckle down. I did another video on how it's interesting that you call it a decree. Because a decree is a decision made by somebody in a higher level of power than their minions. Because a decree is not law. It is not law, but it has the force of law. You baptize children 8, 9, 10, 12 years old. The standard I grew up with is if you are old enough to know the difference between right and wrong, you're going to be destroyed in Armageddon. And if you're not doing the right thing, you're going to be destroyed in Armageddon. And that was the standard for which you established an age. Old enough to know right from wrong. You tried to lie to Norway and say that you don't baptize children into this agreement that you hold them to for eternity. And somebody called you out. Because it's in your publications, it's in your culture. The younger you are, the more prestigious you are in the organization. This would be like saying to a child, you see your parents crying at night? You don't want that. You don't want that. Parenting is hard. It's nonstop. It's 24/7. I heard these talks from the stage. Literally talks. But let's say that you told this child when they were like 10 years old, you don't want to be a parent. You're going to give your children to me when you get older. You're going to agree to it right here and now. Because you can see this. You know this is hard. You know this isn't what you want. And then when they get older and realize the magnitude of what's going on, and they don't believe that anymore, they can't back out. It's not that different because you aren't taking their children, you're taking their entire social structure. Because you're a bunch of No. You got called out using your own literature, your own community, and you don't like it. You don't like it. You got called out for lying about the way disfellowshipping works and how severe it is. And you got caught lying about baptizing children. And the government says, we don't like this. You aren't doing this under our blessing. They didn't even tell you you can't do it anymore. They told you we're not giving you money while you do it. And when you stop, you can reapply to be a religious organization under the government of Norway. Stop being the evil slave and you can reapply and it won't be an issue. The government has the authority to hold you to their standards. Because according to the Bible, they are appointed by God to maintain order until He comes in. And in Deuteronomy 13:9, we've got not the evil slave. Deuteronomy 13:9 is where we have apostates should be stoned without mercy. You back down on that. But you're not backing down on something that causes suicidal ideation. What about all the abuse victims that you leave in Jehovah's hands? But leaving it in Jehovah's hands has an ultimate overriding power that nothing else does in cases of abuse. You can know something bad is going on, not be able to prove it, and leave it in Jehovah's hands. But you can't explain this to me. You can know terrible things are going on and do nothing about it except leave it in Jehovah's hands. And you can't do that for members of your congregation that might have had some like serious sin, like trying a cigarette or like having an addiction issue. And now you got problems because somebody called you out on your decree. Lean on into it, evil slave. I lean into the ranting. But you're not going to win. Leave it in Jehovah's hands. Do what you need to do to be able to get your free money. You won't do that because then the people don't have control. Anywho, I'm out. Have a good one.